Alrighty, time to get started here. My name is Micah Malone. This is Micah Talks History. Today I will be talking about Jacksonville, Florida. You might not be able to very well see the map from how far back the camera is, but this is my giant map that I drew as proof that I can draw, like I said. And we have our whiteboard here today, so let's get started. So first, let me address some of the things that I've drawn on this map here. Down here, we have St. Augustine. So St. Augustine isn't directly on the map. I didn't draw it because that's not what we're talking about today. Today we will be talking about Jacksonville, and So St. Augustine is more popular than it's more popular than Jacksonville, definitely on a national scale. So you could know about St. Augustine, but not know about Jacksonville, and they're relatively close. They're about maybe, say, an hour drive away from one another. Worst case scenario, or something like that. But Jacksonville, we've got it right here. This is the downtown area. I've drawn a little bit of a dotted line around it. So most of it's on the north shore, I guess you could say, north/west shore over here. Let me actually address the St. Johns River right here, which the city is built on. So the St. Johns River, it comes north. It flows north out to the Atlantic Ocean, which we got over here. This is the Atlantic Ocean. All of this is the eastern seaboard, and this is all of Florida. North we have Georgia. This is the border line here as far as that goes north, directly above Jacksonville. Yeah, but we've got Georgia here. St. Mary's, it's a little town in Georgia. It's one of the main areas where you can use a ferry to reach Cumberland Island over here, which is a little bit of like a nature preserve sort of area. I have yet to go there, but I will at some point. Over here we also have like a little naval station where there are submarines anchored that I didn't know about until like a while recently. But I've been up in this general area. I've been all over here. Yeah, this is where I live, Jacksonville. So the border along Florida and Georgia follows the St. Mary's River headed out west, and then it changes a little bit further out there. But a lot of this here, this is Yulee. It's just our first, I guess, stop as we come south toward Georgia. Also St. Mary's River right there. But Yulee area, a lot of this is like marsh, and a lot of this coastline is marsh. It's not as well defined as I've drawn it, at least not up here. It's a little bit less defined further down, closer toward the south end of Jacksonville, in between Jacksonville and St. Augustine. It's a little bit more defined, but it's also still kind of less defined in some spots. But here in Yulee, we have most of it. It's a pretty, like, what you'd consider like a backwoods sort of area. But 95, I didn't draw 95 on my map, but 95, Interstate 95 runs through this general area. It runs past Yulee at least. Runs past Yulee through Jacksonville as it goes either north or comes south. So that's what we got going on here. Over here we have, to the east, we got Fernandina Beach. It's a smaller town area. It's kind of like St. Mary's. If I had to choose between the two of them, I'd say St. Mary's is better, but you didn't hear that from me. South we have Amelia Island, which is more so along the lines of what you'd think if you were thinking like a beach location. It's definitely more tourist heavy. A lot of people like come down here from different parts of the nation and vacation here. So we got Amelia Island right here. The whole thing is called Amelia Island. And then Fernandina Beach right here. Yulee. Also, right here we have the Jacksonville International Airport. It's a decent-sized airport. They're expanding it as I'm talking right now, so it will be bigger, sort of, but it's not all too big, which does help with whenever I'm like trying to like fly out of there. It's pretty easy to navigate because there's not too much going on at any period of time. And this is also the main airport people use to get to St. Augustine, so you fly through here a lot of the time. Over here in this little corner pocket, we have the Jax Zoo. It's over there. Also, not too much to look at present, but they're presently working on it. Excuse me, what? They're currently working on expanding it. Also, as I speak. So both of these, a lot of Jacksonville at the current moment is getting expanded on. in order to make space for new people coming down, and then also just changing with the times, you could say. But yeah, so that's what we got over here. Again, we have the downtown. I got my little dotted line surrounding it. Jacksonville Jaguars. You may or may not have heard of them. They lose a lot, but that's their stadium. It's right here on the eastern side of the downtown, right next to the St. Johns River. So that's where their stadium is. There's like 3 main bridges in Jacksonville. There are more than just 3, but the 3 main ones at least are the Main Street Bridge. That one's blue. It's also called the John T. Alsop Bridge. He was like a significant figure in the city in the 20th century, but it's also known as the Main Street Bridge or John T. Alsop Bridge, whichever you'd rather. A lot of people just call it the Main Street Bridge, but that's right there. That follows Main Street directly through the city to the outskirts of the downtown, and then coming north from the San Marco area, which I'll address in just a second. But let me cover these bridges here. There's the Hart Bridge over here. This one is green. Main Street Bridge. I think I said it, but in the off chance I didn't, it's blue. So we got a blue bridge, a green bridge, and a red bridge. And that's what I call them before I knew the names when I was like a lot younger. But Hart Bridge is the green one. It goes sort of to the south end of Arlington, which we got over here, this Arlington area. It goes from downtown almost directly. Yeah, it's pretty much directly right next to the Jaguar Stadium, as well as the next bridge I'll talk about. But it heads straight from there into Arlington. And then also we have the Matthews Bridge. The Matthews Bridge is red. Yeah. Covers from Jacksonville into this middle area between like the Fort Caroline area and Arlington area. So that's right there. Arlington area, Fort Caroline area, there's not too much going on over there. San Marco area, there's not too much going on either. But the houses in San Marco are a lot bigger. A lot of older houses over there, pretty big. Christmas light displays. Me and my family will go over in this general area and drive around during Christmas time because it's really nice. But also we have Bay Meadows and Southside, this general area here. The town center of Jacksonville, where they have a lot of the shopping centers and like different name brand stores, a lot of high items, or whatever you'd say. But that's over in this general area as well. We got the 3 beaches. We got Jacksonville Beach. Well, there's actually 4. We got the 4 beaches. We got Atlantic Beach. I'll start from the north going south. Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, Jacksonville Beach, Ponte Vedra Beach. This whole area is called Jack's Beach a lot, but they do have specific names and designations. And then Ponte Vedra Beach is not technically a part of Jack's Beach, but it is over there. If I had to choose, I'd say Ponte Vedra Beach would be my favorite because it's more so out of the way than these 3. So it's a lot quieter. There's more, like, I guess you could say, like, it's definitely more like wildlife, and it's quieter. There's a lot of woods and like wildlife in this general area, as opposed to the three northern Jack's beaches here. So that's the one. We have Mayport Naval Station. This is where a lot of the Navy ships that are in the area will dock. Also, again, like the submarines, I guess, dock here. The main Navy ships, the surface level Navy ships, dock here a lot. And then over here in this corner, we also have NAS Jax, Naval Air Station Jacksonville. The Air Force Navy ships, or excuse me, Air Force Navy planes that'll coordinate with the ships, they land here in this general area. So Jacksonville is a big military city at present. And back heading north, because I just realized I forgot. Also, I have my little Atlantic Ocean over here. And then we have Little Talbot Island right here on the coast. It's a really scenic area. You can get a really nice drive headed north toward Amelia Island. I've done it before. It's really nice. It's really nice. The water is a little bit more shallow in this area, so it's like the beach comes in further, so you got the blue reflecting water. It's really nice. Over here we have Jacksport, and this is like the main shipping hub for the area. Definitely pretty busy as far as cargo ships and everything coming in and out. And where was I? Yes. Okay. We got the Mandarin area over here. It's a little bit. It's sort of like San Marco, but it's got less older houses. So it's still less. It's still like. Also, it's a little bit quieter because it's a little further from the downtown. Orange Park is over here. Middleburg over here. Fleming Island right there. We got Green Cove Springs all the way down here. And yes, Green Cove Springs did just get a mention. There's really nothing going on over there, like, at all. But World Golf Village is definitely a pretty big, I guess, tourist attraction, you could say, for people coming, I guess, into this general area for St. Augustine. I don't know if it's like, there is a World Golf Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's like the official one or if it's just like our Jacksonville version of it, but there is one down over there. Interesting area, World Golf Village. We've got Durban and the Bartram area right over here. Fruit Cove right here. Julington Creek comes pretty far in as well. And then we have the Nocatee area over there. And then St. Augustine in the south, but it's not on my map featured. Okay. Just making sure I got everything. And I believe I did. Okay. Yeah. So now that I've gotten everything, just gonna go over a pretty brief overview of, I guess, this whole general area and just like some of the history that went down here. So like the history of Jacksonville, you could say. So starting off pre 1564, this was just like this whole area is just indigenous tribes. Again, it wasn't too big of an area even back then, but there was like a couple of tribes that were in this general area. They used the St. Johns River primarily for fishing, trade, and like transportation, heading north from South Florida into the north here. The St. Johns River itself starts off in like central South Florida as it comes north into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's definitely a pretty good, I guess, avenue for trade, you could say. And that's why both the native tribes of older days and then the Europeans when they came over, and then also presently us in the U.S. now use it a lot for trade. But that's what we got. And then in 1564, the French showed up and they established Fort Caroline over here. The French Huguenots, they showed up, established Fort Caroline. And so technically Fort Caroline would be the oldest, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but St. Augustine is like the oldest settlement, the oldest continual settlement in the continental U.S. Yes, and if that's not if that's incorrect information, I'll confirm it when I do my St. Augustine version of this type of video. But the French Huguenots arrived at Fort Caroline. They set up base there, you could say. In 1565, however, they were attacked by a Spanish force that came over under Pedro Menendez de Aviles, and so he ended up going with his group and attacking and destroying Fort Caroline, and essentially stopping the French from turning the whole Florida area into their own colony. So around this time is when Spain becomes solidified as the colonial power that's in charge of Florida. I don't know if you saw my video on the deep dive into the French and Indian War and everything, but as I was saying in that video, the French were really just in Canada at this period of time, and then they were trying to come over into the Ohio area as well. But mostly just in Canada. The British have most of the eastern seaboard as we know it from whatever is presently at least Massachusetts. I don't know if they were up over in Maine area, but from at least Massachusetts area to Georgia is British controlled. and then Florida, and then a lot of the Louisiana territory is Spanish controlled, and then eventually the Louisiana territory ends up passing hands to the French later on, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so the Spanish, they end up taking out Fort Caroline. There is an area in Jacksonville still called Fort Caroline, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to erase it. So they end up taking that out and kicking the French more or less out of Florida. And then they established St. Augustine to the south, and so that's where the Spanish more or less stay. That's their main, I guess, hub. So that takes place, and then Spain more or less controls Florida into the 1700s. And by the time the 1800s roll around, over in this Jacksonville area, there's an area called Cowford, and so that's because like people are using cattle and they're driving them across the river, and so the area ends up being called Cowford for a little while. And by 1822, the United States ends up acquiring Florida from the Spanish directly. And so this is the treaty between the U.S. and Spain, and it's the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819. So that takes place, it's a little bit after the War of 1812. And then the official transfer takes place in 1821. And so the settlement in this general area is officially renamed Jacksonville. And so that is where Jacksonville actually technically begins, and it's named after Andrew Jackson, who was the military governor of the Florida Territory in 1821. So they named it after. There's a statue of him. There is a statue of him in Jacksonville. It's about like right there. It's right next to. It's right next to the Main Street Bridge. It's a little bit off to the west here, but there's a little statue of him right there around a little roundabout in the city, which I've seen because I've been there. But so that's that. Moving right along into the 1800s. So the Civil War takes place. Florida ends up seceding with the CSA, Confederate States of America. One of the things that the Confederates weren't good at was like asserting naval dominance, because they just didn't have like that. They didn't have like the control over the Navy or anything when they seceded. So the United States Navy was really able to like. Again, this is another video for another time, but they were able to like completely blockade the South more or less. But the CSA were able to like sneak some ships in and out. Like they did have like. Essentially pirates, more or less, but not in a cool way. But so they had like ships that they'd slip in and out and like run the blockade and everything. But since the Union has like naval power, Jacksonville is a naval city, more or less. So they're able to like sail down the St. Johns River and like essentially because like the water's deep enough for like most of the city. Or most of the St. Johns River until you get like further down. They're able to just sail down, like essentially like take control of Jacksonville navally. But since they've only got like the naval force primarily, they're not able to like completely hold Jacksonville for the whole war. So they're like it's changing hands in between the CSA and the Union throughout the Civil War. But it's also during this time period, the 1830s to 1850s, and then also after the Civil War, like immediately after. Jacksonville is like at this time it becomes known as like the shipping hub, I guess you could say, of the area. So lumber and shipping is going on a lot in the Jacksonville area at this time. All right, and then post Civil War, a really significant and tragic event happens in Jacksonville. It's the Great Fire. So you may have heard of this, the Chicago Fire, which I'll do a video on at some point. But Jacksonville had its own sort of version of that in 1901, May 3rd, 1901, and it was the Great Fire of 1901 is what it's called. And over 2,000 buildings were destroyed, over 10,000 people were left homeless. It was a really tragic time for the area, but it was also one of the worst urban fires in U.S. history. And I'm sure the Chicago Fire is up there with that. But post fire of 1901, the people of the city are able to like come together and like rebuild um, relatively quickly, and so they're able to, I guess, switch up Jacksonville and start establishing modern architecture and like urban planning and everything. Since a lot of it gets destroyed during the Great Fire, but post post 1901, so like from 1901 to like the present day, the city has become at this like as time has gone on, it's become like a major banking and also still transportation and also naval hub. So like again, we got the naval base there, and we got Mayport, and we have Naval Air Station. So this like Jacksonville at some point became like a really big like military town. So a lot of people in Jacksonville either have people in their family who have in the past served in the military, or present immediate members that are serving in the military, or members in the extended family that serve in the military. And some people don't. But a lot of people do. So that took place, and then also the transportation with the Jacksport here being established and essentially running a lot of the shipping. I think we're the biggest shipping area in the region. Second to, I think we're either second to or really close to Charleston, but that's because they're allowed to essentially it's a whole practice called dredging, where you like digging up the bottom of the river. So they're allowed to do that up in Charleston, but we're not allowed to do that here in Jacksonville for whatever zoning reason or something. I'm a little rougher on that topic, but so we're either slightly ahead or slightly behind Charleston as far as major shipping area in the region. But we got Jacksport right there, and so presently Jacksonville is the largest U.S. city by land area currently in the continental U.S. So that's cool, but it also makes traffic pretty bad sometimes. But again, like I was saying about the zoo and the airport and everything, like they're presently working on like modernizing Jacksonville and changing it for the amount of people that are going to be moving here in the near future and everything. And yeah, definitely getting some work done as far as the city's concerned. But thanks for listening to me yap about Jacksonville for a while. Yeah, thanks for sticking around.